this year he's racing the ex-Ian McKellar car, and we've seen what sort of a star McKellar has been in TBR Tuscan racing in the last couple of seasons. And one thing that National Hot Rod Racing does teach you is very good car control indeed. And John Stewart will now have to take the longer, wider outside line. He may not be able to instantly get past Alvin Doak. He may have to sit there for a lap or so, but no, he is able to brake a bit later going into the West Bend, and he manages to lap that slower car and put, of course, another hot rod between himself and Colin White. This the view from John Stewart's car. Which way does he go, left or right? Ultimately, he goes to the outside. This time he's got to find a way past 54 Mark Sear, and again he's going to go the long way round down to the West Bend. Just gets his nose in front, and now comes up behind Frank Tart, the man from Werrington, the ex-national super rod driver, and Frank Tart hugs the inside line. The slower cars not really making life too easy for the race leader. Battles going on ahead of John Stewart now. Bit of contact there as Martin Lawrence, back from his honeymoon, gets caught up with Gavin Seeger. Now that's the last thing that John Stewart wants. Cars getting involved in their own little dramas, and of course if they spin and delay him, then Colin White is going to be right back on his tail. Martin Lawrence runs out wide. The only Renault Clio in National Hot Rod Racing is lapped then by John Stewart. And at the moment, dare one say it, things are looking good for Stewart to add his name to that very exalted roll of honour for people who have won the National Championship 3 times. Peter Stevens did it in the early 1980s. John Stewart looking to do it in the mid-1990s as well. There is Colin White in 718. He's still hanging on to second place, but all the time Keith Martin is getting closer and closer behind him. Now Colin White will have to go the long way round. Alvin Doak on the outside. He in turn is looking for a way past Mark Sear. Mark Sear wants to find a way past the yellow and blue car of Frank Tart ahead of the pair of them. As 718 goes all the way around on the outside. And there, having spun out and narrowed the circuit, is Colin Reid, his white car up against the Armco. But look back, because 962 Ormond Christie is on the move. We've lost Ricky Hunt sadly out of the battle, but Christie is up into 4th, and it's about to become 3rd because he's right there on the inside of Keith Martin in 994. Absolutely side by side, they make their way onto the back straight with a very busy and crowded circuit still ahead of them. Mark Sear still battling with Frank Tart. Behind him is Colin White. Then Keith Martin still fending off the 5-time world champion Ormond Christie. Through the East Bend they go, and this time Christie looking for a way past. Now can he do it? Colin White dives round the outside of Mark Sear. He's having to put an awful lot of energy into getting past slow cars. The same is true of Keith Martin in the white car behind him, and then the black, red and gold car of Ormond Christie. This time it's Christie who's got to find a way past Alvin Doak's Peugeot. He does so now as they make their way down the back straight. 2nd is White, 3rd is 994 Keith Martin, and 4th is Ormond Christie, as ever tigering his way up through the field. It was Christie, remember, who we saw getting involved in those dramas with Gordon Bland earlier on. Let's hope his car hasn't suffered as a result of that, as Keith Martin essays to put a car between himself and Christie. Gets caught out there by Mark Sear, gets sideways, gets crossed up, hangs onto it, goes wide, and Christie now has the ideal line to take 3rd place away. Can he do it? Through the East Bend they go, side by side with Christie on the better line, and through he goes. Ormond Christie goes through up into 3rd place as Roger Peck is still having his moments, and round he goes with help from Alvin Doak's car. The 1991 world champion Roger Peck is left facing the traffic. Bump, bump and bump again as Alvin Doak muscles his way past. Roger Peck puts it into reverse gear. Also involved in that was 907 Robin Martin in the ex-Dave Longhurst Fiesta. Well, Roger Peck will lose an awful lot of ground. Now, it may not be worth him rejoining. He'll have to make that decision for himself as John Stewart comes up to lap once again Volker Tims in the Corrado. The German driver who's been a regular visitor to the World Finals at Ipswich, now coming to Hednesford as well. And the Autocross tuned car should dive to one side and allow John Stewart to go past. Well, again, the back marker's not making life too easy for John, but there is a gap on the inside of the West Bend, and through goes John Stewart. 175 continues to lead. The Peugeot 205 of John Stewart now pulling away all the time from, in 2nd place, 718 Colin White. There he is on the back straight, still working his way past the slower cars, but Ormond Christie is getting closer and closer. Christie has got to find his way past those 2 slower back markers between himself and Colin White. He'll be able to get past one easily there on the inside. Through he goes. Ahead there of 154 Gavin Seeger goes Ormond Christie. Now, since his victory in the World Final, Ormond hasn't made that many appearances. The Crumlin Ace has had dramas with his engine this season. It looks as though all that is behind him now, though. He laps Gavin Seeger, and the next guy he's got to find a way past is Mick Phillips. Again, a bit of contact there. Mick Phillips, former Porsche racer, having returned to National Hot Rod Racing in the last few seasons. And look, round the outside there goes Gavin Seeger. Now, Gavin, as we've already seen, has been lapped. There's no real reason for him to race against Ormond Christie. I suspect what he's trying to do, though, is make sure he gets ahead and stays ahead of Mick Phillips, who he is racing against on the track. So Ormond Christie, having found a way past Mick Phillips, has now got to do all that hard work all over again to get past Gavin Seeger. And what that means is that the gap has grown between himself and second place man Colin White. Here though is John Stewart, looking as though he is going to make it 3 in a row in the National Championship. He goes across the line. The start marshal, by use of his fingers, indicates the driver's positions. Position 1, John Stewart. Second is Colin White, and there, third is 962 Ormond Christie. Onto the back straight he goes, having found a way past Gavin Seeger once again. A national hot rod racing that does seem to appeal to the older drivers, just as NASCAR racing does, and it's NASCAR from which Bill Morris, the man who created national hot rod racing many years ago, got the inspiration from. Some great racing we've seen in the category ever since it was introduced to Britain in the 1950s, and now some very sophisticated and very smart cars indeed. Oval racing thankfully being able to throw off that rather grubby stock car image it used to portray, and the cars these days around about 15 or 20,000 pounds a car, very well presented, very smart, and very quick. Across the line goes John Stewart, the race leader, still with a healthy advantage over Colin White, who is now being reeled in by Ormond Christie. This year's world champion is not going to be content with third place in the national championships. The gap is coming down between him and Colin White in the Fiesta. 2 laps to go now for John Stewart. It's been a fantastic drive by John, up from the 5th row of the grid, remember. He leads the national hot rod points table at the moment after the 3rd round at Ipswich just 2 weeks ago. And it looks as though he's going to win the national championship for a 3rd year running. 95, 96 and 97 will be a magnificent record for John Stewart. But look, on the very last lap of the race, the battle for second is getting closer and closer. Ormond Christie, wishing the race was 90 laps, not 75 perhaps, is right on the tail now of Colin White as through comes John Stewart. One more lap at the Hednesford Oval between himself and a record equaling 3rd win in the national championship. But what can Ormond Christie do now about Colin White? Into the last corner, it's not for the want of trying. There is the checkered flag. John Stewart emulates Pete Stevens' record by winning the national championship for the 3rd time, as Ormond Christie on the slowing down lap gets past Colin White. White it is who comes home in 2nd place, and Ormond Christie finishes in 3rd, right on his tail at the finish. Oh, for another lap, thinks Ormond. But after 75 laps, John Stewart is a happy man. For the 3rd time, he wins the national championship, with coming home in 2nd place Colin White, and only just behind him in 3rd, Ormond Christie. 4th goes to Keith Martin ahead of Colin Smith, and Gavin Seeger in 6th.
Well, thanks, David, and some great racing there from Hednesford. Good fun.